Fights in Tight Spaces is currently available on PC and Xbox One in early access. I conducted this review using the PC version of the game. A big thanks to Mode 7 and Terminals for providing me with a copy of the game for the purpose of review. Fights in Tight Spaces is a roguelite deck builder centered around unleashing copious amounts of whoop-ass in, you guessed it, tight and confined spaces. The game features many genre staples, such as random encounters, slowly altering your deck while you play, and permadeath. Aside from its Brunswick Bond setting and snazzy minimalistic art style, Fights in Tight Spaces also sets itself apart with a focus on movement and spatial awareness. Tight Spaces is more than just a title. To succeed, you have to carefully plan out and move around the arena to both set up your own attacks and avoid the attacks of your enemies. Many cards have specific ranges or usages, and you can also push, pull, or otherwise manipulate the movement of an enemy. Play your cards right, and you can even avoid attacks altogether, or force the bad guys to attack each other. There's no need to beat off a bunch of dudes with just your own fists. Clever play can force the goons to lend you a helping hand instead. Fights in Tight Spaces really forces you to rethink how to play a deck building game. You might be the grand champion of Slay the Spire, but step into this ring with that mindset and the game will break both of your knees. That's because it's not just the numbers on the cards that matter. Yes, blocking and damage are important, but they are pretty useless without proper positioning and space management. You can't just move freely either. Your ability to move is governed by cards, just like your attacks. Some cards let you step, dash, or shift to the side. Others might allow you to swap places with another guy or step forward and kick someone. Where you end up at the end of each card play is every bit as important as what the card actually does. You can't take a lot of damage, and healing in the game usually comes at the cost of spending precious currency to do it. Using cards that grant you block can mitigate the damage, but if you can avoid the attack altogether, that's even better. It's as simple as getting out of your attacker's range. The not simple part is you're usually fighting several thugs in a tight space, many of which have various ranges and abilities. One thug may step forward and kick you, another might trigger as soon as you enter his range, and many carry guns. The good news is, you can turn all of that around on the baddies. If you enter an enemy's range on your turn, they are primed to attack on theirs. Swap places with another guy and the attack will hit them instead. Thematically speaking, though the game is turn-based, the fight is in real time inside the game's universe, and your agent is doing crazy Jason Bourne stuff, moving so quickly the goons can't stop the attack until it's too late. You can even watch a replay of your fight after the fact without any of the video game pauses. It's not as smooth as a real fight, but for a turn-based game, it still looks pretty freaking cool. Kicking a dude into his buddy, and then stepping out of the way of gunfire so the bullet pops another guy, feels incredibly satisfying, and the tight spaces really do force you to think. Some cards let you use walls to your advantage by jump kicking off of them or firmly planting someone's face in them. Doors and railings are an instant kill if you knock someone into them, though the same also applies to you. The environment is every bit as important to think about as your cards, and you can't just play everything willy-nilly. You generally start with 3 momentum per turn, and many cards cost at least 1. More than that though, you also have a combo meter that increases with every attack. Some attacks actually use the combo meter as its own separate currency, and many others are stronger the higher it is. Any kind of movement lowers your combo by 1. As important as movement is, you must always strike a careful balance between what you need in any given fight. Nothing sucks more than to step in for that killer blow, only to realize you needed a combo meter of 3 for that fancy spinning kick, and now you have 2. The big biker you just stepped up to will not have any sympathy. Each fight is as mechanically tight as the space it takes place in. A bad move can cost you because the game pulls no punches. If you go down, that's it, you're starting over. The fights are so fun, however, that you'll want to hop right back into the ring. Each run is comprised of 5 distinct layers, each with its own theme and gang of bad guys. You will contend with bikers, rowdy prison inmates, and even ninjas. Each faction presents its own style of fighting, bosses and mini-bosses, and they all require very different strategies. No matter what kind of deck you're building, you're going to need to be adaptable. There are 4 starter decks, 3 of which you will need to unlock. In every fight you win, you get to pick from a random selection of cards. But winning is actually the bare minimum to get by. You have to do more than just beat the bad guys if you're ever going to actually complete a run. As I mentioned earlier, it's difficult to heal, and if you do, you're usually forking up some hard-earned money. You do not want to waste money on healing, trust me. You don't get money for just winning. Each fight will have side objectives that can present you with various rewards, be it boosted health, higher combo meters, and of course, money. These objectives range from winning in a set number of turns, reaching a certain combo, or even protecting some idiot while you fight. Money can be spent on new cards, but more importantly, upgrading your existing ones. Upgrades are massive in fights in tight spaces. Even something as simple as lowering a movement card's cost to 0 can have a huge impact, as it allows you more momentum to spend on attacks. It's another strategic factor in a very clever game, and that's a belt that fights in tight spaces should champion proudly. It's polished to a mere shine and as sharp as steel. Oftentimes early access games just simply feel unfinished, even if they're fun. That isn't the case here. I would have never known that Fights in Tight Spaces was an early access game without being specifically told. There's not a single portion of it I can point to and say that it's lacking. It has fully playable runs with varied enemies, stages, and objectives with a host of cards to build your deck. This is the kind of early access game I get really excited about, because I'm not waiting on the game to be fixed. It means that throughout its early access phase, I'm just getting more stuff on top of what I was already happy with, and that is a massive win in my eyes. That isn't to say the game is perfect. It certainly has a couple of bruises. There's no meta progression, and while you can start on a later gang once you've unlocked them, doing so is severely gimping yourself since you won't have the cards and upgrades you would have earned by starting from the beginning. The game itself will even warn you of this. The problem is, that leads you to fighting the first gang, the bikers, a lot. The deck building is slow, so once you get a feel for the starter decks, you'll be fighting the bikers a ton, but with the same exact cards for at least 20 minutes of each run. Even though the game does actually have great enemy variety, that's only the case as you progress. It can get really old fighting the same gang with the same starter decks over and over, even if it never once loses its challenge the entire time. I also believe the balance is slightly off. I definitely found an optimal build strategy, and I won't spoil it because it took me hours of playing to figure it out. Well, once you see it, you can feel like you're gimping yourself if you build your deck any other way. Yet, given how strong the game already is entering early access, I would bet on most of my issues being ironed out over time anyway, and I had already played for over 10 hours before any of my complaints surfaced. Fights in Tight Spaces is a great game, not just a great early access game. The game is deep, satisfying, and has plenty of content and replay value. Its unique take on the deck building genre is polished and stylish, making you feel like a martial arts badass, all by playing cards, and that's pretty impressive. It's one of the best early access games I've played, and that's saying something. To give you a small peek behind the curtain, I've started including a disclaimer whenever I request or am offered an early access title to review. The cut and dry of it is, while I don't score them, my recommendation is based on its current quality, not its potential, and I warn everyone not to send me a key if the developer isn't confident in that. Well, Ground Shatter had that confidence, and I can clearly see why. I can easily recommend the game because if they vanished and never updated it again, it's still a great game worth playing here and now. Though I very much doubt that will be the case. The level of polish clearly shows the dev team's dedication. Think hard, play cards, and punch dudes in the face. You can't ask for more than that. To recap, the pros. It has a unique take on the genre with clever movement mechanics. The martial arts combat can look pretty cool in a genre that rarely cares about visuals. There's a variety of enemies, stages, and cards. The game is mechanically tight with cohesive gameplay design. It's very polished with a lot of content. It hardly feels like an early access game. The cons. Early fights can get a little repetitive, and there may be some balance issues present. My verdict? Should you buy it now? Yes. I've always found it absolutely ridiculous to ask people to like and subscribe before they've even watched the video they clicked on. That's why I leave all this crap to the end of my videos. But if you're still here, and you did enjoy the video, liking and subscribing helps me out a great deal. I've also left some links down in the description below. One to my website, where you can find the bulk of my written content, my creator store, where you can buy games that directly support this content, and my Ko-fi page if you feel like throwing in a donation. In any case, thanks for watching, and until next time.